Today is the 17th day of the Omer, and the topic is minimizing pleasure. I think when it comes to the issue of getting pleasure from things in this world, many of us are very familiar with ideas such as im ein kemach, ein Torah, if there's no bread, if there's no sustenance, if we don't have the basic things of this world that we need, then it is impossible for us to sustain Torah. Ideas such as the importance of Torah, im derech eretz, that Torah needs to be mixed together with involvement in this world and involvement in making a living. And I think those ideas are relatively well known. I think less well known is the fact that there's an equally robust tradition of a different viewpoint, a viewpoint which emphasizes much more the need to limit pretty severely one's interaction with things in this world, to not take a moderate path when it comes to avoiding the pleasures of this world, but to really push the pleasures of this world away because they present a very grave danger to one's ability to really acquire Torah, to get closer to God and to understand God and God's world more fully. In addition to the idea of im ein kemach, ein Torah, it also says in Pirkei Avos in the 6th parak, pas b'melach tochal, that a person, if they want to be able to acquire Torah, should eat just bread with salt, v'al haaretz tishan, and that you should sleep on the ground, v'chayet sar tichya, and that a person should live a life of pain, and that's the ideal, that a person should live an incredibly meager lifestyle and should live a life of pain. This idea is really embraced by Rav Avraham ben Rambam, Rav Avraham, the son of the Rambam, and of course we're familiar with the Rambam as being essentially moderate, as preaching in almost all circumstances moderation. But his son, Rav Avraham ben Rambam, in the Sefer Hamaspik L'Ovdei Hashem, preaches a very non-moderate approach to this issue. And he says that there are essentially three major reasons why it's very important to limit the involvement in pleasure that we have in this world. Number one, he says that essentially and fundamentally a person is made up of two components. A person is made up of a physical component and a person is made up of a spiritual component. And that the entire goal of our existence in this world is to allow our spiritual selves to escape our physical selves. And that if we involve ourselves in physical pleasures, we're doing the exact opposite of what our main goal in this world is supposed to be. Instead of distancing ourselves from our physical selves, trying to elevate our spiritual self beyond our physical selves, we're further plunging ourselves deeper and deeper into our physical being by allowing our physical being and its enjoyments to take such a central role in the way in which we live. That's number one. Number two, he says, and he uses a very a sharp phrase, which I think is worth quoting, Lo tismaker nafshecha l'ta'anugos ha'olam. Don't let your soul be sold out to the pleasures of this world. He says that a person who involves themselves in the pleasures of this world on both ends, both as far as acquiring what's necessary to get those pleasures and as far as enjoying those pleasures, become so involved and so obsessed with those things that it takes up their entire spirit, not just their time, which is also a problem, but takes up their entire spirit. Somebody, and I think we know this from common experience, that somebody who is very involved in trying to earn a very substantial amount of money in order to be able to get a lot of things in this world. They spend so much time involved with working and engaging in business and doing all kinds of activities related to that it eats up their entire experience. And on the other end of it, when somebody is involved in enjoying pleasures, the Rambam gives the example of somebody who's building a house, right? So they start getting involved with the carpenter and with the contractor and with the plumber and with the tile and with the wallpaper and with the carpets and with the color of the walls and with the window treatments and with the fabrics for the upholstery and all of these details and details of enjoying it, that it becomes an obsession. It becomes something which eats up the entire person's way of thinking. Or a person is planning a big meal, or we can think of the example of a wedding. You get involved with the color of the dresses and the color of the ties and the table linens and the photographer and the flowers and all of these things. The main point of the wedding is almost lost in all of these details. So and it's not just the time; it's the mind. And then even Rav Ram points out, if you do set aside time for learning Torah, you end up learning Torah with a large part of your mind distant somewhere else, thinking about, worrying about other things. So that's the second reason, is that you become so involved in it. And the third reason, which is extremely important, is that having a simple lifestyle is so important for being able to reflect and being able to think, pulling out of the rat race, not being involved in work so much and not being involved in pleasure so much. Just gives a simpler, slower paced type of lifestyle, which allows one to be a truly reflective person. Rambam says that is the real reason why the Avos and Moshe Rabbeinu and David HaMelech chose to be shepherds instead of farmers. Because shepherding, you could just sit in a field and shepherd, and you watch and you look up every once in a while. You don't have to worry about the seasons and the planting and the rain and this and that and the other thing. A simple lifestyle which affords time for reflection. For these three reasons that Rav ben Rambam says, it's really essentially important to minimize the amount that we're involved in acquiring and enjoying pleasures in this world. He does, however, conclude by making the point, which is important to remember, that you're not going to succeed in minimizing pleasure by cutting off all pleasure in one fell swoop, in one moment. You have to take it slow and go step by step, minimize one thing at a time, and give yourself time to acclimate to the change before trying to change something else. Thank you very much, and enjoy your day.